Right. Homework today, 9-3, hopefully is written in your plan book. Zach, good job writing it down right now. So, forget about Johnny. He's too popular. He's too much of a superstar athlete. I love to bowl. Now, we went bowling at Thanksgiving, and I didn't throw down any big challenges, but if I wanted to throw down a very large challenge, I could say, you know what? I am such a good bowler. I'm so fantastic that you could double your score and give yourself 10 more points, and my score will still be higher than yours. So, here's our statement. You can double your score and include 10 more, and I will still top the top score. To top someone means to be above or better than, or greater than if we're talking mathematically. So I want you on your paper right now to try to write out what inequality would represent that. Let's use S for your score. Your score is S. No, because the number of pins you knock down and your score will not always be the same, because how bowling works, how the scoring in bowling works. And then here is my score. My score is 300. I had a really good game. I had an extremely good game. Anyone know why that's such a good game, Brennan? That's a perfect game. Now, I've never bowled a perfect game, so obviously this is a false situation. But if I were to throw down a challenge like that, and if I had a 300.
Have you been close?
I've been above 200. It's between 200 and 300. It's like once you're above 200, it's pretty hard to get to 300 because you need every single ball you throw to be a strike. As soon as you don't have a strike, it hurts your score a lot. You can't get a 300 if you bowling not a strike. So, anyone confident in their inequality that they've written this morning? Anyone real confident? Thomas, since you were saying you had that homework issue.
Okay. So, like, I think.
Go ahead and write it up here.
Okay. Oh. So. Okay. So. Okay. Okay. X plus. Okay. So, I doubled each of the players' points, and 3 times 2 is 6. And then I add 30 is...
Now, was he talking to the entire team or was he talking to a bowler?
The entire team. He said you can each.
But I will still top the top score. Not the team score, their top score.
Okay. I'm going to...
You gotta carefully read the situation. So, if you missed how Thomas misunderstood that, he actually took the problem to an interesting place. He thought I was so cocky, I was going to beat their team score. That each bowler would double their points, and then each bowler would add 10, and I'd still beat the whole team. I am not that cocky. I was talking to one bowler. So absolutely correct. I'm going to clean this up a little bit for you. This, if you're having trouble reading it, Thomas wrote 2x 2 times, but if we said that S was going to be our score, we can say 2 times S plus 10 more pins. That'll still be less than my score of 300. So now what would we need to do to both sides to start evaluating this? Bella?
Subtract 10 from each side.
We need to get rid of the constant first. Notice in your learning target, we always first undo addition or subtraction. So there's addition here. We undo it. So we subtract 10 from both sides. Now what we get is that 2s is less than 290. Now what do I do to get the s by itself? Divide your side by 2. Make sure you use that hand that you have attached to your wrist. Do I flip the inequality symbol?
Nope, nope.
But I divided.
Yeah, but not by a negative.
But not by a negative. We only flip it if we multiply or divide by a negative. So, 290, split it up. What's half of 200? 100. What's half of 90? 45. So your score must be less than 145. Has anyone ever scored more than 145 bowling? Yeah, it's hard to get above 145. That's a 100 to begin with is a pretty good score. It means you knock down most of the pins throughout the game.
Well, what does it mean to be cocky?
Really confident, kind of arrogant. Anyone know any other synonyms? Yeah, you like flaunt what you have. Like, if I were to walk in and be like, I'm better than all of you at math, and I can prove it anytime you want. That'd be like a cocky statement. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, so somebody that comes into like practice and they're like, well, I'm the best one here, and that's obvious. Like, you know, those people, they probably people that have maybe annoyed you before. Cocky people tend to be a little bit annoying. So here's the whole gist of our lesson. We're doing exactly what we did with equations, except we're doing it with inequalities. So we really have to evaluate which inequality symbol do we use in the situation. So think about these three verbal situations that you have. And I want you, and you have your options up here, I want you guys to try to write the inequalities below them that fit. We'll start by doing one together to kind of get rid of some of your options. 9 plus 5.5 times a number is more than 50. 9 plus 5.5 times a number is more than 50. Which one would that be? Our left, center, or right inequality? Emmanuel?
The center.
The center one. 9 plus 5.5 a number is more than 50. More than tells me we're going to use that greater than inequality symbol. So you guys try the other two on your own. You've only got two other options. Try the other two on your own. While you're working on those, please give a little glance up here. All of your Chapter 9 materials, whether they're notes or progressing to mastery or whatever it is, are going to end up being able to be found in this folder. How I'm going to work is the oldest stuff will be in the back of the folder. So now an extra copy of today's notes is going to go in the front of the folder. So if you guys lose stuff or if you're absent or whatever, you want to come look in these folders, I will change them every chapter so that we have everything that you might need if you were sick. Question? So you're talking about the second one? Lunch special costs $9. The Egyptology Club can spend at most $50. How many lunch specials can they order if they also share a dessert that costs $5.50? So you don't know how many club members there are, I agree, but really what you don't know is how many lunches they're ordering. Because we may not be buying for the whole club if we only have $50. So really your unknown there would be lunch specials. Really your unknown here would be how many lunch specials. Isaiah, you think you got one? You're stretching? Alright, we're going to cards. Cassidy?
Yay. Okay, so I have one for the second.
Alright.
Okay. So, I did 9L plus $5 for lunch.
Yeah.
And then $5.50 is less than or equal to 50.
That would be this equation right here. 9 times however many lunch specials. So Cassidy said she, instead of using N, she used L, which is perfectly fine. And since they're going to share a dessert, how many do they buy if they share one? Just one. So maybe it's like a chocolate chip pie or something like that.
That's cute.
And Oriana, you had your hand up. The last one.
Well, I kind of just used the ones that I didn't have. So
Process of elimination, kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's look at it though. You read you read a 50-page chapter about the early Egyptians at a rate of 5.5 pages each minute. So if I start with 50 pages that need read, I'm subtracting where I'm reading 5.5 every minute. So N you could replace with M for minutes if you want. After how many minutes will you have fewer, so less than 9 pages left? Any questions on how we figured those out? Because your got it, I do not believe, has options. Try the got it on your own. half of a number t plus 25.9 is at most, at most, that one throws some people off, is at most $203.56. Or sorry, not dollars necessarily, just 203.56.
Do we have to use T?
Yeah, because it lists it in the problem, you want to use what they gave you.
What's it the plus sign?
You can make it capital if you want, but since they told you to use T, maybe we'll end up talking about time or something like that, and that's where T is important. You're trying to get the answer over. Yes, but I would write it vertically to show the division. So instead of doing it like, how you wrote it was fine. That's just what like my preference. So that, well, where would it be? If it's half of the t, yeah, it'd be on top. So Oriana, share with us what you had. Go ahead and just tell us.
I had t over 2 plus 25.9.
So at first, Oriana had this for t divided by 2, which is fine. That would be correct also. But it's almost easier to look at it like this, and then she had plus 25.9. Because then when we start solving the problem, it's just a little nicer to have your variable above your value for division. And then at most, what inequality did you use, Oriana, for at most?
One facing outward and then a line underneath.
So it's at most, so it could be equal, and it would be less than or equal if it can be at most, because it cannot be more than. Bunger?
Can I walk up there and show what I did? 'Cause I think I did something a bit different.
Did you do half of a number t plus 20? So,
No, I didn't do the parenthesis. I just did half t.
oh, that's the same thing. So this, your t divided by 2 could also be 1/2 t. You could also write it like that. There's a few ways that you can write half of that. You could also write it 0.5 times t. That would be the same thing.
What I did is like to figure out if it was like what sign it was.
Yeah.
I just looked up at it for the lunch special. It says the Egyptology club can spend at most 15.
Yeah.
And that's
At
what it
most means you can spend up to that amount. You can spend that amount. You can't spend more. All right, moving on. So really, and we're going to breeze through this really fast. Equivalent inequalities.
Equivalent inequalities are inequalities that have the same solution.
Okay.
You can solve an
Inequalities
inequality.
that have the same solution. So even though two inequalities might be different, so we have x divided by -3 plus 12 is less than 28.9. We can solve this by first.
Then use multiplication to undo division and isolate the variable. Multiply each side by -3.
What are we going to have to multiply by? -3.
Because you are multiplying by a negative number, you have to reverse the inequality
So
symbol.
inequality symbol that was less than will now flip
Simplify.
around and become greater than. And when I solve it, x is now by itself, and it's just x is greater than that value after the multiplication. Come on.
Simplify.
Ooh, come on. There we go. So I might have another inequality that starts with different values that ends up being the same.
Equals negative
So if I
equation.
start now,
d and 7/10 for x in the related equation. Check the
we can choose any value shaded on our graph to be a solution. And
The solution check, so the answer checks. When x divided by -3 plus 12 is less than 50 and 7/10.
So really all we're doing here is the same properties of equations as long as I follow the rules to do something on both sides it stays the same inequality. The only change in the rule is if I multiply or divide by a negative, I flip it. And actually, that's not a change in the rule, guys. With an equation, the same thing happens. We have to flip that equals, but when we flip the equals, it stays the same because it's still equals. Question or question?
Okay. So, on the test, are we gonna have to graph it?
At least a couple, yeah. So make sure you know, and we'll practice more of that as we get into like the problem solving and everything. But make sure that you're familiar with greater than would be above that value or to the right of that value. Less than would be to the left of that value. And then if it's got the or equals, then we shade in the bubble. Eli, did you have a question?
It was that.
Okay. A magician's assistant makes $10.60 an hour. If he already saved $53.70, how many hours must he work in order to save at least $165? The first thing I like to think about is what symbol will at least mean? It means he wants to save what compared to 165? Bunger, you've had your hand up like all class. Greater than or equal to, because if it's at least, that's the minimum that you want. You want that much or more. We are on the back now, in case you're not with us. So then, what does he have saved? Well, he already has $53.70. And now we're going to continue to add to that $10.60 every hour that he works. And I want that to be greater than or equal to 165. Now, I wrote this like this on purpose. Whether or not this is addition or subtraction doesn't matter. You're actually looking at what sign is in front of this value. Is that a positive value or is it a negative value? So the 5370, is it positive or negative? It's a positive value. So to get rid of it, we have to subtract it. This symbol doesn't actually matter yet. It matters what symbol's in front of the 5370. If somebody could do that subtraction on the right side, that would be great. We're going to have to borrow. You got it? What is it? 111.40? 30, sorry.
Wait, I think I typed it in wrong. Hold on.
No, that seems like what it should be.
No, it is.
Yeah, that's it.
It is. Okay, we're done.
Now to solve how many hours. Now I'm going to cards. Ooh. Same hands up. Ooh, Luke, I haven't called on you today.
Okay. Divide by 10. 60.
Yeah, divide by 10.60 or 10.6. And we get that his hours will have to be more than or equal to more than or equal to, yeah?
It's 10, 60. Oh wait, no, 8.
What?
10.5.
Yeah, it should be 10 and a half. So he will have to work 10 and a half hours or more. So if he works 10 and a half hours, he'll get to his savings goal, but you always want more. You want to keep saving more. Try the got it on your own. You have still the magician's assistant. But now he's performing a trick. He needs to rope off a rectangle for his most famous trick. The length of the rectangle must be exactly 7.5 feet, but he only has 24 feet of rope to use. Now, he might use all of the rope. He might use less than all of the rope. We need to figure out what are the possible widths. Pay attention, though. If we're talking about roping off a rectangle, do we only have one length and one width? No, we have how many? Two lengths and two widths. So for this situation, you're thinking perimeter is 2W plus 2L. My perimeter won't necessarily have to be the entire 24. So think about how do we set this up? How will that compare to the 24? What inequality? That's why I use the cursive L, because that looks like a 1. So I'm going to remind you guys of this one more time. The last time you'll see a Progressing to Mastery in this folder is for Chapter 8. From now on, they'll be in these pink folders. And I don't know. I might then just keep that folder like somewhere. I'm trying to figure out where it would go.
Maybe you should keep it.
You should use like paper clips and like put the sections together, but then put a post-it note at the top with like the name of the section. That way you can easily see.
I was trying to think of like a location in the room where it could live. Or if I put them like in a file cabinet. So we just knew like the top drawer was Math 7.
Be like random.
Anyone think they got it? Anyone that I haven't talked with in class yet? Huh? I know. That's all. And Katie left.
He's right here.
I know, but she just got back. Abby, we haven't talked yet. So when I think about my 2L plus 2W compared to 24, what inequality symbol did you use? You always can. Layla, do you know my 2L plus my 2W? Could it be equal to 24? Could it be more than? Could it be less than? Yeah, you're fighting throat stuff too. I heard you. She said it has to be less than. It could also be equal to. So if I set up my 2L plus my 2W on the left side, then I'm going to have less than or equal to 24. Your inequality might be written the other way around. You might have written 24 will be greater than or equal to my 2W plus my 2L. That is okay as well. So it all depends on what order you write the inequality in. I like my variables on the left side, so that's why I wrote it like this. Now, Bunger, what can we immediately do here?
We can separate them so you could subtract the. Okay, so I got it by figuring that if the length of the rectangle has to be 7.5, I multiplied that by 2 and got 15. And
So,
then subtracted that from
hold up, slow down.
4.
So Bunger subbed in his 7.5. And that, when multiplied, turns into 15 plus 2W less than or equal to 24. He said he then subtracted it. So if you don't have this process written down, make sure you're doing so right now. That 2W then is less than or equal to, what'd you get? 9.
And then I divided that by 2 just so I could figure out the individual lengths.
You mean widths?
Widths.
But yes. So the width would have to be less than or equal to 4.5.
Yay.
Each width would be less than or equal to 4.5 what? Feet. Always check and see, do we have a label that we can use? So could my length be 2? Or sorry, could my width be 2?
Yeah.
Could my width be 1?
Yeah.
Could my width be 0?
Yeah.
Well, no, because then it's not a rectangle. So even though my width could be 0, according to this, it could be 0 in quotations. It can't be, because then it's not a rectangle. So actually, if we went to graph this, because some of you I think are nervous about the graphing, to do a realistic graph, it could not be 0. It could be, what do we say, 4.5. It could be equal to that. So we shade that in, and we shade between these. But I would actually stop at 0, because after that it doesn't make sense. Nothing can have a width of negative, like that doesn't make sense.
That'd be a negative triangle. It'd be a sad triangle.
It would like go the other way.
Yeah.
That would be.
sad.
It'd be like shorter, negative. What? Like that doesn't. It can't happen.
It'd be a sad.
It would just.
It's gonna be a sad rectangle.
The assistant is making a rectangle with a length 7.5 feet and has at most 24 feet of the rope. So the width, we see that now, and we already discussed this. Does that make sense to you guys? Why we have to think about what's reasonable? Because 0.1, I could have 0.00000000000000000000001, but as long as it has a positive length, the width has a length. Because everything is a length, whether it's the width or the length. As long as it's positive, we're fine. And the last thing today. Then maybe we'll get back to that mind trap thing that you guys keep asking me.
It's time for the final challenge. Let's play One of These Things Is Not Like the Others. 3 of the inequalities below have the same solution. Cross out the inequality that has a different solution.
We want to solve each of these inequalities, find out which one has the different solution. So I'm going to give you guys a 90-second head start. Starting now. It should really only take you about 30 seconds to solve one of these. Because all you have to do is undo the addition subtraction. And there's only really math to do on one side. Then you undo the multiplication division, which again, the only math you have to solve happens on one side. The wrong one? Oh, yeah, I did. You got 33 seconds. And Eli, what do I do first in my top one?
What?
We're using cards.
Subtract 15.
We subtract 15 on both sides. That will give me 2y is greater than, well, 6 minus 15. We find the difference between them.
-9.
-9. Because the minus, the negative, was more powerful. Then, Karina, what do I do next? (2y) is greater than -9.
You would flip it since it has the negative.
Katie? We divide by 2, and since we're dividing by 2, what we're dividing by is positive. We do not flip it. Because what we're doing is with the positive number. Now, you made those mistakes yesterday, so you want to be really careful. Think about what we're dividing by, or what we're multiplying by.
Well, I know. I got the part after.
Okay, what is it?
I got -4.5.
Yeah. So y is greater than -4.5. I do agree with that. Make sure that you have the right inequality symbol in there. Divine, what's the first thing we would do on the next one? No. You should be able to know the first step.
Subtract by 27.
Yeah, we subtract both sides by 27. Now this is already negative, so when I get further negative, I really end up there with 6.8y is greater than -30.6. Any questions on how I got that? Then, Eminal, what do I do to both sides?
Divide
By?
by 6.8.
Yep, and since I'm dividing by 6.8, I still do not flip the sign, but it does become negative or stays negative depending on how you think about it. So it'll be y is greater than negative 4.5. That one is also the same. Bela, what would be the first thing I would do in the next one? We would subtract 27 from both sides. That color did not change how I wanted it to. So we get negative 1/3 y is greater than 1.5. I'm going to write it as a decimal, although you could write it mixed. Then, Luke, what would I do on both sides?
You divide by negative 1/3.
But instead of dividing by the fraction, when we have a fraction in front,
Multiply by the reciprocal.
we multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by negative 3/1. Over here, that'd be multiplied by negative 3. Because I multiply by the negative, my inequality symbol has to flip, and it becomes y is less than, sorry, I don't know where that dot came from. Y is less than negative 4.5. So that is our different solution. This one is our different one. But to check it, we do the fourth one. What's the first thing I do, class? Add 15 to both sides. That gives me negative 2y is less than a positive 9. Then, class, I divide by negative 2. And since I'm dividing by a negative, well, my left side will be positive, but also it has to flip. So now this becomes y is greater than negative 4.5. And that is the same as my other two up above. If you did not get that for your answer, check your work. We first over here added 15 and added 15. Questions, comments, concerns? You're happy? Was that a question, comment, or concern? So let's say if you're concerned that you're happy, I can't do much for you. You're concerned what? Solve this.
Okay.
And I'll even give you another one to solve for those of you who get done with that real quick. If you want to take the challenge, solve my other one as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you passed.
Thank you, I'm glad I could pass. Give you another minute for these. Try to solve both. Don't just solve the first one and then think you're done. Question or answer?
Well, can you check my answer?
But these are not equal. Ah! This should not have been equal. Sorry.
Oh, that makes
Should have been less than or equal. Sorry, should have just been less than or equal.
Change my answer completely.
Shouldn't change anything but the symbol.
Oh, never mind.
Nope.
Finish with the second one too.
All right, there's your minute.
Wait.
Franny, in my first one here, what do I do first?
You add the 8 to both sides.
I add the 8 to both sides to undo that subtraction. That gives me 4f greater than or equal to, negative 13. Remember, guys, some of you are still struggling with this. If they have different signs, a negative and a positive, find the difference between them. Take the sign of the more powerful number. 21 is more powerful, so we take the negative. The difference between them is 13. Then, Crystal, what do I do to finish solving for f? I divide by the 4 on both sides. And I can either write this, f is greater than or equal. I can leave it improper, negative 13 fourths. Or I can make it a decimal. Or sorry, I'll make it mixed first. Negative 3 1/4. Or f is greater than or equal to negative 3.25. Any of those forms are correct for that answer. Now, Isaiah, what do I do first over here? I subtract 12 on both sides to get rid of addition happening. Now I have negative 2/3 x less than or equal to negative 6. Cassidy, what do I do next? Did you solve this one yet or no? Okay.
You would divide.
Zach, what do you think?
But no, wait, I'm not done. You would multiply by the reciprocal.
But you said
I had
divide
to think it out loud.
Zach, do you agree or disagree?
I was
Okay.
thinking out loud.
So, multiply by the reciprocal. And to do that, I'm going to put this over 1. What's a negative times a negative? Positive. I get x over here. Zach, what happens to my inequality? What do you mean? My inequality cancels out? It flips. It changes directions. So now it becomes greater than or equal to. What do I get when I do this multiplication? 9. Negative 6 times negative 3 gives you positive 18. 18 divided by 2 is 9.
I got it.
Questions, comments, concerns? What was the other mind trap that we didn't solve, you guys said?
The lamp one.
What lamp one?
I don't know.
I don't know what you mean by the lamp one.